Yeah. So ERGI, which the apothecary is named after in the homestead, ERGI is actually a term. Um, Let me back up a little bit. So, among most indigenous cultures, there is a specific cultural and societal role, function, seen as sacred, mind you. I really, really want to address that it's seen as sacred, vital, needed to the community. And it's ergi is a word that describes someone who does not fit into a gender or sexual norm category, and so there's tons of variations on that. It's familiar if you've heard of the Two-Spirit movement that the native cultures of the Americas are doing now, and it's a reclaiming the Two-Spirit movement of an old, ancient, sacred role, function of these tribes. For instance, in Lakota, it's called Winkte. And I know I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but Winkte means not man, not woman. Now Winkte is specific to those who were born male, regardless of their identity moving forward in life. And so Winkte means not man, not woman. And it's a third gender. It's a completely different role, function of that society. And so as someone who has struggled a great deal with their gender identity at times in my life, and also around sexual orientation, I needed a word. I needed a word, and I've used queer for probably the past year because that I find that it fits that, but queer even only touches so deep. And so when I came upon the Two-Spirit movement, I was amazed, and having someone who has studied academically religion and philosophy, and also just a student of spirituality in general, I was intrigued by the idea, of course, because what it says is that it's sacred, that it's needed, and that the cultures where we find this phenomena, which is all over the globe, that they were revered, and there are, of course, variations of that as well. Not all tribes revered their gender and sexual non-conforming folk. Sometimes they were brutal to them, like we are in the West, and but in those tribes that they were revered in, and this was mostly the norm, was that they were respected. They were seen as community builders. Those that sought out a new way of being and birthed it. These Winkte or these Nodli, they couldn't give birth to children, but they could give birth to conceptual societies in which everybody was taken care of. Humanitarian societies in which the orphans didn't go without parents because they would take them. And they were also respected and revered for their counsel. And they were sought out as healers as well, And so, of course, I was intrigued. I've always been. I always tell people that that plants started talking to me before anything else, and then, of course, other healing and shamanic practices came around. But I can't connect to the native. I use that term sometimes because it's easier. Ergi is synonymous in a lot of ways, except for the fact that it's a Norse word. And it comes from, ergi is a noun, and argr is a verb, and it means feminine man, and so ergi is the noun of a feminine man. And it was slang for a really long time, and that probably has a lot to do with Christendom coming into the Norse societies. But even among the Norse, we were respected. We were sought out as healers. And there's, Loki, for instance, is androgynous many times. And so the archetype that ergi represents is that of the androgynous, that which has melded together the masculine and feminine, that which has melded together matter and spirit, and that which perceives unity you know. And so that was revolutionary for me. And what was revolutionary for me as well was that I had a history, you know, that I had a people, that I had an ancient lineage of spiritual wealth to draw on that my own society had not given me, you know. And the levels of self-acceptance, worth, the concept that I needed to be here because the universe had brought me forth specifically the way that I was to create change in my community. Revolutionary. Revolutionary idea for those in the West, you know. We're taught that we're not needed very much of the time. And so ERGI was born out of that. The farm and the homestead were born out of that as a platform to talk, to have this discussion that my people, my tribe, those in the LGBTQ plus community, the acronym keeps getting longer. Thank God it keeps getting longer, because we should be the people that are talking about inclusiveness. If we can't be inclusive, nobody can be inclusive. And I always say, when that which is queer is liberated, when queer is liberated, the world will be liberated, because we've given freedom to the people who know how to sit with pain, who know what death is inside their being. To quote a poet that I really like, that know how to fold in on themselves. And yeah, ERGI is what we're trying to do. It's a concept that we're trying to take further. And it's a platform for social change, and it's a platform to give back to my brothers and sisters in the queer community and let them know that, hey, you matter, and it goes back further than 1969, further back than Harry Hay, and Harry Hay was talking about this in the 1950s and early 1960s. But that the universe, God, Allah, the great mystery, great spirit, Brahman, bore you into the world, out of your mother's womb, into creation, because it needed you the way that you were, because only you can do what needs to be done. And that's revolutionary to a queer person. That your gender or sexual variation is actually sacred. And that's what we're trying to tell. That's what we're trying to teach. That is the good news. And that's our gospel that we're trying to promote.